In 1968, at the height of the Vietnam War, Robert Mueller chose to enlist in the Marine Corps. He served as a rifle platoon leader. Years later, he said that of all of his accomplishments in his life,
America lost a decorated war hero and public servant last week. And what happened next sparked one of the most sobering moments in recent congressional history, because when Robert Mueller, a Bronze Star recipient, Purple Heart veteran, and the longest-serving FBI director in modern history died, the sitting president of the United States reportedly responded with 2 words: "Good, I'm glad he's dead." And it is against that stunning backdrop that a congressman took to the floor to deliver what amounts to both a eulogy and an indictment, drawing a sharp and deliberate contrast between the man Robert Mueller was and the man now leading the institution Mueller helped build. And to understand the full weight of this moment, you have to understand who Robert Mueller actually was, not as a political figure, but as an American. In 1968, at the height of the Vietnam War, when many of his generation sought deferments, Mueller voluntarily enlisted in the Marine Corps, led a rifle platoon into combat, earned a Bronze Star for valor after his platoon was ambushed, and he rescued a wounded Marine, and received a Purple Heart after being wounded himself while leading soldiers to rescue others pinned down by enemy fire. And he later said that of all his accomplishments, he was most proud that the Marine Corps deemed him worthy of leading other Marines. A statement that tells you everything about the kind of man he was. After his military service, Mueller became a prosecutor and senior Justice Department official who served under both Democratic and Republican presidents, was nominated as FBI director by President George W. Bush in 2001, and when President Obama sought to extend his term in 2011, the United States Senate voted 100-0 in his favor, a unanimous, bipartisan vote that is virtually unheard of in today's political climate, and speaks volumes about the cross-aisle respect Mueller commanded. He then led the FBI through the aftermath of the September 11th attacks, modernizing an agency that was ill-equipped for 21st century threats. And in 2017, when Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, himself a Trump appointee, called Mueller back into service as special counsel to investigate Russian interference in the 2016 election, Mueller answered that call. And it was that decision, according to the congressman on the floor, that made his death an occasion for presidential celebration rather than national mourning, which forces every viewer to sit with the difficult question, regardless of where you stand politically on the Mueller investigation. What does it say about a nation's civic culture when the death of a decorated combat veteran and lifetime public servant is met with public contempt from its highest office? The congressman then pivoted to the present, drawing a pointed contrast between Mueller's legacy and the current FBI director, Kash Patel, whom he accused of falsely claiming the FBI planned the January 6th Capitol attack, of producing a song honoring individuals convicted of violently assaulting police officers that day, of compiling what he called an enemy's list of public servants in a book singling out Mueller himself as, in Patel's words, an utter swamp creature, and of imposing loyalty tests, including polygraph exams on FBI officials to determine whether they had ever personally criticized Patel, practice that, if accurate, raises serious constitutional and institutional questions about the independence of federal law enforcement from political pressure. The congressman further alleged that Patel fired dozens of career agents simply because they had worked on investigations related to President Trump, installed political loyalists in key career positions, used FBI aircraft for personal travel, and most recently terminated at least 6 agents, some of whom belonged to a global counterintelligence squad responsible for investigating espionage and cyber threats from Iran, reportedly following an embarrassing public incident involving Patel at the Olympic Games, which means, if these allegations are accurate, that the FBI's capacity to counter one of America's most active foreign adversaries has been deliberately weakened for reasons that have nothing to do with national security and everything to do with internal politics. And that is not a partisan concern. That is a public safety concern that transcends party lines. The congressman closed by acknowledging that this committee has spent years debating the merits of the Mueller report, suggesting that whatever one's conclusions about that investigation, the treatment of Mueller in death and the dismantling of his institutional legacy in the present represent a line that even political opponents should agree has been crossed. And that is ultimately the challenge. This moment puts before the American public not whether you supported the Mueller investigation, but whether you believe the institutions of American democracy, including the FBI, should be led by individuals with demonstrated independence, integrity, and competence, or whether loyalty to a single person is now the defining qualification for the nation's top law enforcement post. And as you reflect on everything you've just heard, the life of Robert Mueller, the circumstances of his death, and the allegations surrounding his successor, ask yourself this: what standard do we as Americans hold for the people we entrust with our national security, and are we holding to that standard right now? If this kind of fact-based, contextual breakdown is what you come here for, please like this video, share it with someone who values informed analysis over noise,